All right. This ain't just a show. This is a platform. Veteran built, battle tested. Welcome to the MisFitNation. Yeah! Mic in the room, built from boots on the ground, now we breaking the rules. 2 vets, 1 leader, painting the sound, turn scars into sermons, let them echo around. Authors with truth, musicians with fire, actors backstage chasing something higher. Entrepreneurs bleeding just to get ahead. If you fought for your dream, yeah, you are what you said. If they told you no, if you still came back, if you fell to your knees but you stayed on track, this is your voice, this is your flame. Say it loud, remember the name. No salvation, just elevation. We rise again. From the fight to the end. We are the MisFitNation. No damn labels, no damn cages. If you're still breathing, you belong. Turn it up. This is our song. Yeah. This is our song. Yeah. Veterans standing with ghosts in the chest. First responders running in while the world second guess. Gold star names carved deep in the soul. Your story ain't over, we carry the whole. Coaches teaching mindset, breaking the chain, turning barely alive into owning the pain. Truth over polish, scars on display. If it's real, let it bleed. That's the misfit play. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels cold. If it's heavy right now, and the dark feels cold. It's Aubrey right now. We're the more than you know. 9888, don't walk alone. Veterans press 1, bring it home. Don't trade forever for tonight. You're still needed in this fight. We are the MisFitNation, built from scars and dedication. We rise again. From the fight to the end. We are the MisFitNation. Every voice is fabrication. From the silence to the scream, we're strong. Welcome home, you belong. You belong. You belong. Oh wait, you. Oh wait, you belong.
All right. Welcome back to the MisFitNation and your Sunday after dinner edition. I know there's a lot of things going on today. You got the World Cup. If you're a Knicks fan, you're going nuts right now, burning school buses, beating up cabs, but you're excited because it's just over 50 years since your last championship, and you got one back last night, beating the Spurs. So congratulations, NASCAR fans. Denny Hamlin won again. That's 3 in a row. So if you're not a Hamlin fan, better start rooting for your driver a little harder so he comes in a little higher and a little better across the way. But tonight, we're bringing you conversations with extraordinary people making a difference in the world. Today's episode is especially meaningful because we're joined by 2 men connected by service, sacrifice, and a shared mission to preserve the stories that deserve to be remembered. Our first guest, Ethan Groce, is an Army veteran, social worker, veteran advocate, and board member of the Mid-American Veterans Museum. He served in the United States Army from 2017 through 2023 and continues serving in the Army Reserves now. His experience, including being within hearing distance of the Abbey Gate bombing in Kabul, Afghanistan, shaped his understanding of sacrifice and purpose. Joining him is Jason Galvan, a Gold Star son whose life was forever changed by the loss of his father in military service. Rather than allowing tragedy to define his future, he dedicated himself to ensuring that the sacrifices of America's heroes and their families are never forgotten. Together, they co-host Operation Insight, a podcast devoted to highlighting ordinary people who have accomplished extraordinary things. Their mission is simple but powerful. Preserve stories, honor service, and remind us that heroes truly walk among us every day. Today, we'll discuss military service, loss, resilience, leadership, healing, veteran advocacy, and the importance of carrying forward the legacy of those who sacrificed for something greater than themselves. Misfit Nation, help us and welcome Ethan and Jason to the show. Welcome, fellas.
Thank you, Rich.
What's up, Rich?
Real pleasure.
Thanks for taking this short notice jump in here. It's like 2-day notice, so it's outstanding to get you guys on here. Not to put you on the spot, but to get you in here as quick as possible.
Absolutely.
And it's just George again with his magic finger on the text made us all the stars align, get us together at the perfect time.
That's right.
Make sure we all can be here tonight and talk. So thanks for doing this tonight.
The Army birthday, nonetheless.
That's right. Happy birthday, U.S. Army. That's right. And Flag Day. It all comes together. And of course, if you want to watch UFC tonight, you can watch UFC from the White House. So the world is upside down and inside out right now, but it's outstanding. You can have UFC at the White House. So
That's right.
we're not there, of course, but someone's there watching it. So, fellas, I gave the elevator pitch about both of you there. If you guys want to just trade off and give a little bit more about each other, right, yourselves, and let the Misfit Nation know about you.
Jason, you want to go ahead first since you started the podcast originally?
Sure. Hey, thanks for having us on, Rich. I really appreciate it. Ethan, thank you for joining us tonight, too. Yeah, guys, Ethan is one of my closest friends now. We've been hosting this podcast since April together, but I've been hosting this podcast since 2022, formerly known as the Dog Tag Podcast, now Operation Insight. Came from a grassroots effort after learning about the museum in 2022 and meeting with our former executive director, Jim Higgins, and knowing that there was a need for a podcast, need for another medium to preserve the stories. And very proud that we were able to, in the first iteration, to do about 45 episodes or so. And then now with Ethan, we're up to a total of 88 episodes just in the past few years here. So we're really, really proud of that and happy that we can dedicate our time and activities to the preservation of veteran stories. Yeah, and that's just a little bit about the podcast, a little bit about my story. I was 11 years old when my dad was killed in action in the Battle of Khafji Desert Storm, January 31st of 1991. So after that, I've been associated with veterans and the ilk for that period of time. My mom remarried another military service member a few years later and have had military presence in all of my family members around the bigger part of the family for as far as I can remember. So that's just a little bit about me. Ethan?
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, Jason and a fellow named Jim Higgins, who is the previous executive director of the Mid-America Veterans Museum, they started the podcast effort, and they passed it off then to Jason and a gentleman named Dominic Masters, a Marine veteran. And then I was fortunate enough to step in after that, and we rebranded Operation Insight. We felt that sort of fit the theme of the podcast a little bit better. And as Jason referenced, since April of 2025, for just a little over a year, we have recorded over 80 interviews, and we've released, I think just today was our 45th. So in just a little over a year. Not too bad, right? You know, Rich, I'm sure you know, most podcasts die out after a few months. And so if you And so if you can get over that hump and keep on churning out products and your product and your content, you have a good thing going there. But yeah, let me share a little bit about myself. First of all, Misfit Nation, thank you for joining us. Rich, this is a real honor. I'm a listener, and so it's really cool to be on now as a guest. But so I'm from the area originally. I grew up in the Metro East, and I sort of had a pretty typical kind of life. You know, I went to college, that kind of thing, and worked after college. And then I hit the age of 26, and something was missing. And Rich, you might have had a similar experience to this. I think what was missing was purpose. And so I'll never forget this. I was taking a road trip with my younger brother up to Wisconsin just for the hell of it. And on the way up there, I was wrestling with what do I want to do next? And what should I do next? And I had always had this inkling in the back of my mind that maybe it would be fun to be in the military. And so on that road trip, I said, you know what? I was at a point in my life where I could go wherever I wanted, and I had choices to make. And I thought, no time better than now. And so came back from that road trip, found the nearest recruiter, Army recruiter. I had no other branch in mind. It was Army all the way. And I was 26, and so I sort of had an advantage over a lot of recruits. I came to the recruiter with 3 MOSs, and no more and no less, 3 MOSs that I'd be willing to join the Army for. And he got me the one on the top of my list, which was a 35 Mike. And so I was really fortunate, was really lucky. So got into the Army October 2017, got out June 2023. There's a lot that happened in between there. I'll give you just some of the highlights. So I got to attend airborne school, jump school at Fort Benning. Loved that. Loved being a paratrooper, and that comes back later at the end of my story. From there, I went to Monterey, California, which you're probably thinking, okay, but you're in the Army, right? Yeah, I was in the Army. Monterey, California is home to the Defense Language Institute, DOD's language school. So I got to attend there and studied Persian Farsi, which is really relevant right now with Iran, and Persian Dari. And then from there, well, funny enough, a little caveat, COVID hit while I was in California. And so poor little me, I had to stay there for 6 extra months. Oh, it was so horrible staying on the beach. But then I got assigned to the 82nd, Fort Bragg, center of the universe, and loved my experience there. So at that point in time, I had basically been in TRADOC, and I was basically a trainee for all those years. And so I finally got into the real Force Com nonetheless. And so long story short, my sort of, if you can call it a claim to fame, was deploying to Kabul, Afghanistan during the withdrawal and evacuation. And Rich, as you referenced earlier, I appreciate you mentioning that. I was within 1.5 miles of the bomb blast at Abbey Gate.
Wow.
So that ties into my story now, because so I get out a few years later, like I said, June 2023. I come back to the area because I wanted to be home. And I saw an article, this was in Cottleville, which is not far from O'Fallon. That comes into play. I saw an article calling for volunteers at the Mid-America Veterans Museum. At that time, it was still the St. Charles County Veterans Museum. That would change within about a year or so of this. And so I reached out to, funny enough, Jim Higgins, who was Jason's original co-host, and said, hey, I'd love to volunteer. I'm a veteran. I'm looking for ways to use my time, be productive. And so I started volunteering at the museum. The museum went through that name change. And then I happened upon the Dog Tag podcast. And at that point in time, they were going through sort of kind of a transition period, that's called. And they hadn't done episodes for about 6 months. And so I reached out to the executive director, Nina D'Angelo. I said, hey, I'd like to get to know what I can do with this podcast. What can I do? And she linked me up with Jason. Our visions aligned perfectly as to what we wanted the podcast to be, especially with us, basically renovating it and reiterating it. And so, yeah, that's the story. So my wife and I better mention this or I'm going to get killed. My wife and I met in the Army. Can't forget that. She and I met out in California. And she and I now live in North St. Louis County. So that's my story in a nutshell.
On the Bay in Monterey. I landed in Monterey Airport one time, and I got there so late that the rental car desk was closed, so I slept in the airport.
Oh, man.
Oh, that sucks.
1 a.m. till I think it was like 5 or 6 when the rental car people came. I just told the TSA guys, hey, wake me up when the rental car person comes so I can get a car and go to work. So I was going to Fort Hunter Liggett, the TDY.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take care of you. No one's ever slept here, though. nowhere to go. I gotta say here. So I just pulled 2 couches together, went to sleep, and he came up and got me. He said, "Hey, they're here." Thanks, bud. And I got a car. But that was as close as I got to hanging out in Monterey.
There you go. That's not bad.
It had to be the safest airport I've ever been in. So
It's a small one too, which I'm sure you remember.
good restaurant upstairs.
Yeah.
And Jason, the Battle of Kopje was a vicious one, and kudos to you guys, for battling through 11 years old to now losing your pops. That was a badass battle there for the Marine Corps. First recon there in the Battle of Kopje. A couple guys from my hometown that got wounded there as well, Marines. That's not why I joined the Army. I was joining the Army anyway, but they didn't move me. I just studied, and I tried to study all these things before I go to war, and then I read about the Taliban before going to Afghanistan. I always try to stay ahead of the curve as much as possible so I can understand what I was getting into. And I'm sure you've done the same thing.
Absolutely.
Jason, for you to keep driving forward from 11 years old up forward. I know back then the support wasn't as great as it was when SWAT started and things got a lot better for the Gold Star families. How did you and your family drive through that portion of that period?
Oh, great question. I mean, the military complex, or establishment at Hurlburt Field, where we were at that time, actually wrapped their arms around us pretty well, and the community at large did too. So it was, of course, like Ethan and I like to discuss with our guests here, our guests at the museum, is that the Vietnam veterans didn't get the reception like the Desert Storm veterans did coming back. But that also goes for Gold Star family members with, just news outlets, news broadcast. Our local news station traveled with us on different events, and the community was just great at large. So I can't complain about that. The town that I lived in, was heavily military based. So maybe it was insulated that way, but it wasn't easy, but it also wasn't extravagantly hard to navigate that at that time. One of the things that I cherish that is important to me is that I got to talk to my dad for the last time, probably around the 16th of January, about 2 weeks before he died. It was at my buddy of mine's house across the street, catty corner to the street, and his dad was a major in the Air Force, so a fighter pilot. So, we back then we didn't have cell phones. It was all handheld phones that you had on a receiver in your house. So you would get, the different interference from the different phones across the neighborhood. But at any rate, my mom ran across the street and in the rain and handed me the phone. So I got to talk to my dad, ran back home and talked to him for about 5 minutes or so. And that's a moment that I cherish. But that I mentioned that family because, and to answer your question, they wanted to make sure they were a part of my healing process, created a back then, we had photo albums and the such, and memory albums and things like that. So they created one for me, and that's just one example of how the community wrapped its arms around us. So
that's amazing, and have that's the tight knit community that's with the military anyway. And back then, with no social media, no instant news, it was probably a lot harder to find out what happened at that point and then learn the story as people came home and told you and your mom about what happened at the battle and things like that.
Correct. Yeah, and it was hard because, like you mentioned, there was no 24-hour news cycle, and communication was a little bit less quick, I guess. I don't even know how to describe that, but my mom received a phone call from a close friend that was also a military member and military spouse, both. And she asked my mom, "Hey, I heard that a gunship went down, and is Art okay?" And my mom said, "Well, we would have already found out if something happened to Art." And no later than time, then we had to knock on the door. So the news media knew before we did, but it was pretty quick. So it wasn't too far off, but because it's a military town, you know, there's a lot of military news going on, especially with that war being televised 24/7 almost without the 24/7 news cycle. Yeah, so we found out. I just so happened to be homesick from school. I was never homesick from school ever. My dad didn't allow me to be homesick from school. He said, "If you're sick, go ahead and throw up and prove it. Now, don't you feel better? Now go back to school." So, but you know, my mom let me stay home from school for some reason that day, and I wasn't feeling good. And then that was the same day that she had a weekly scheduled prayer day with her best friend, our across the street neighbor, and also a military spouse, Jerry Savico. And so Jerry happened to be over at my house waiting for my mom to get ready in her room when the knock happened on the door. So not only did we have community surround us, but we also had our friends, actually a close friend, present in our house when we got the knock on the door.
Wow. That's a major plus for a bad situation to have extra hands on deck and help you through that time. Then
Absolutely.
you flash forward to Ethan at Abbey Gate, where that was live streamed almost, and the whole world could see that happen. And you were right, you were an inch and a half away from it, probably on the ground on a map, but you were right there when it happened. How was that day for you?
Surreal is the one word I can give you. Yeah, what you're mentioning, Rich, it's funny. I'll tell you a quick story. So we had like 6 hours notice that we were going to deploy, which for the 82nd that's not totally unheard of. It's a little faster than usual. 18 hours is usually what the 82nd says they can deploy by. We had about 6 hours notice. And there was some thought that the 82nd could get deployed. You know, stuff was getting pretty hairy there at HCI at the airport, but we weren't sure. And the 82nd's always itching to deploy. Historically, that's just kind of how they are. But yeah, crazy enough, Monday, August 16th, that afternoon, it's almost the end of the duty day. And my platoon sergeant calls me to the office. And I'm thinking, oh boy, what's this about? And he says, you're deploying. I said, what? Apparently you're deploying. He didn't know any information besides that I was deploying. I was like, okay. I mean, all right, where are we going? He said, I don't know. He said, you're probably going to like Kuwait. Okay. And so 6 hours later, we're hopping on to a Black Hawk. It was me and 5 other linguists. There were a few other Persian Dari linguists, which is one of the languages spoken in Afghanistan. And then there were some Pashto linguists, which is the other language. And so we hopped on the Black Hawk. They took us down to North Charleston Air Base. We hopped on to a C-17 and did a quick stop at Bangor, Maine for refueling. Then we hopped the pond, went to Ramstein Airport in Germany for another refueling. And in between that time, all the linguists were on their phones. I mean, we brought our phones.
Oh, man.
No one had told us not to. And so at some point over the Atlantic, this master sergeant comes up to us and he's like, what are you doing with your phones? We're like, Sergeant, are we not supposed to have them? I mean, like, duh. He's like, no, you're not supposed to have those. Well, at that point, I mean, we're not going to throw them in the ocean. I mean, I'm keeping my, sorry, Sergeant. Anyway, I tell you that to say this, like you just said, Rich, it was basically live streamed. You're not wrong. So crazy enough, it was either the day before or day of, I can't remember which. My brother's it was a few days before. A few days before the Abbey Gate bombing, my nephew was born.
Wow.
And I camped out in some office in the airport. You remember, you just find a place to sleep and you sleep there. And so I got some like custom agent's office in the airport. Not a bad spot. He had a couch and everything. And I'm on the phone with my family, seeing my newborn nephew, and I'm in Kabul, Afghanistan. It was just such a weird, like, contrast of worlds colliding. But yeah, so like I said earlier, I think I forgot to even make this tie, so I'll make it now. So obviously, Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz was one of the fallen 13 from Abbey Gate. And I can still remember and this sort of relates to Jason's story. I can still remember when the names of the fallen were, publicized the next day. And I saw Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. I didn't know him from Adam, but I know St. Charles, and that was his hometown. And immediately it hit me, like I'm here across the world in this dangerous, violent, hostile place, and a kid that we probably went to cards games together and didn't even realize it. We probably went to blues games. We were in St. Louis together, didn't even realize it. And now he's dead. And I'm alive, and I'm here, and I'm breathing, and my nephew just was born. I have these things to be grateful for. But Jared's gone. And so part of the reason when I came back, to relate back to my story earlier, when I came back, I wanted to give back because it's not so much survivor's guilt. It's not so much moral injury. I just felt like I lived, Jared didn't. So I have to live at least part of my life for Jared and in his memory. And so to bring us all back, crazy enough, the museum has a lot of displays, over 600 displays. But there is one corner of the museum that honors the fallen. And on either side of this basically display case is Captain Arthur Galvan and some memorabilia from his time in service, and Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz's uniform.
Wow.
In the same corner of the museum. And so, I believe in things happening for a reason. I believe in fate. And I think it's fate that Jason and I found each other. And I think it's fate that we have this program that we can highlight veteran stories and highlight the veterans who are walking amongst us. Heroes, like you said earlier, Rich, heroes amongst us that you wouldn't even know unless you ask. So, but all of that to say, it was a surreal experience. And this might sound strange to people, but I'm grateful for that experience. I got to help a lot of refugees escape certain death. And I got to see a lot of amazing acts of kindness that give me faith in humanity. So I'm grateful for that experience.
That's an amazing story, an amazing link to go right back to the St. Charles thing and Corporal Schmidt. And I went to St. Charles while I was working out there. George lined me up to give a speech to the Boy Scouts out there.
Yeah.
I drove out there from my apartment and I gave a speech, and he could have been there, the young man, because they were all young. All those Marines were young that we lost.
Yeah.
He could have been a Boy Scout at that time. And I gave that speech, and all of them always wanted to know, how did you get through things? Every question that they asked was basically, how did you get through things while you were in Iraq and Afghanistan? And I just kept telling them, worrying about the people to your right and left and making sure you're taking care of them, and they'll take care of you. And their eyes lit up, and they said that because they thought it would be about shooting or whatever. And I just gave them the honest answer. That doesn't matter. And if those two on my right and left don't fight with me or for me, I'm not going to make it home anyway. If I don't fight for them, they're not coming home. That's the whole battle for us. We're not fighting for the politician. We're fighting for the dude and dudette next to us. And that's what lit their eyes up. And that's my first public speaking engagement I did with those Boy Scouts. And that was an amazing time for me.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Rich, because I'm going to give a little plug to an episode we released just today in honor of the Army birthday and Flag Day. We have a guest, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, Jim Craig. And something he said in his interview, he was an officer in the infantry branch. Something he said in his interview is the Army's greatest weapon is not a rifle, it's not a handgun, it's not a tank. It's the infantrymen. It's the soldier.
Yeah.
And so I think that lines up with exactly with what you're saying. It's the people that make the military strong.
Definitely. And the other link from me to you guys is just down the road from you is St. Genevieve, Missouri. That's where the Misfit Nation is born out of, a young man that was taken from us in Afghanistan, December 31st, 2010. Sergeant Michael Beckerman. Part of the highway is named from there by St. Genevieve. He was my soldier. And that was my only soldier I lost in full combat. I say that to go back to your thing about purpose. And I didn't have any survivor's guilt because I couldn't stop that from happening. You can't stop those things from happening.
Yeah.
Combat things happen. But my purpose from there was to keep living, keep pushing forward and helping others. That's why I started the MisFitNation. It was called the Misfits and named it the MisFitNation. Just drive forward and helping as many people as possible.
Absolutely, Rich. Thanks
for sharing that. Yeah, for sure.
See, that's that keep link. We keep linking. It's not just George that links us together. It's other things too.
You're right. And I love that. I love that interconnectivity. Jason and I are always, I love at the end of our interviews after the veteran has, as we get a photo of them and we say our goodbyes. And I walk back in after locking the door to the museum, and Jason and I just kind of look at each other and say, wow, how lucky are we? Wow. And it's stories of veterans, stories of everyday Americans who do amazing things. And every time it astounds us.
Some of my favorite things too, Rich, about our about being with veterans on a weekly basis in our with our podcast is that many times, almost every time actually, the veteran will tell us a story or relate a story on the show, and then afterwards say, "You guys, this is the first time I've shared that story." And this could be a Vietnam veteran, this could be a 101-year-old World War II veteran from the Battle of the Bulge, who we just had on. Holding that stuff in because they didn't have a way to express it or platform it, and feeling confident and comfortable enough with Ethan and I to be able to share that with the world.
Wow, that's awesome. And a lot of them, like you just said, a lot of them don't like to talk about things that, especially the older veterans, they don't like to share all the things they went through with their families. There's usually one or two people they'll talk to about it. And if you're lucky, it's you. It's hard to find them that just want to come out and talk about it. But for like our generation, they want to talk about everything. They want to write books. They want to do it as much as possible to let the world know what they did out there, or see the things that they've seen through their eyes. The older generation, they kind of kept things close to the chest and just came home and just flipped that switch and went back to work.
It was a generational thing. That's how they were raised. You don't boast. You don't talk about yourself. You keep your head down. You work hard. I want to do that story that Jason just shared one better, because what Jason didn't mention is that veteran, that World War II veteran who was at Battle of the Bulge for the entirety of the operation, his daughter drove him to the museum. And we offered, just so you know, we offered to come to him. But his daughter said, nope, I'm going to bring him to you guys at the museum because she wanted to see it. And after that, the daughter, and she's great, Mary's her name. Her dad's Tom Lacey, an amazing American. She had warned me, like, hey, just so you know, my dad's old. You know, he gets kind of that sunset thing after afternoon, after lunch. Hopefully he'll last half an hour. Rich, we spoke for 2 hours with Tom.
Wow. That is awesome.
Afterwards, Mary said, I never would have expected that. It's like he was a young man again. It was incredible.
Absolutely.
But what you said is true, Rich. It could happen to anybody. Jason and I were just lucky enough to get him probably on just the right day where all those stories were right at the front of mind for him.
Definitely. I think I was 9 or 10 years old. We used to go on vacation upstate New York in Catskills. And we went to this little bar, and the Big Indian was the name of the campsite place. My dad would take us to the bar at night, because that's what you did at those days. We played a little foosball thing in there, and there was a man sitting at the bar. I went up there to talk to my dad, and he just started talking to me. And this guy turned out to be Rommel's driver.
Wow.
That stayed in my head forever. I hung out with Rommel's driver. But he didn't tell my dad anything. He talked directly to me. Yeah. So, wow, this is awesome.
That is awesome.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because we've had some vets that have told us part of the reason they're so comfortable talking is because they feel that they're carrying their legacy on by sharing their story. And so that gentleman probably focused on you because you were a young person at that time, and he thought, you know, I want this young person to carry my story forward.
At that time, I wasn't jaded by any news or any readings. So I was just listening.
Yeah,
just stayed with me forever. So it's pretty awesome. We already got a question from the audience for you guys. Hope you're ready. Here we go. This is from Jenny Block 86. Ethan and Jason, both of you experienced military service from very different perspectives. What is one thing you wish every American understood about the true cost of freedom? Thank you, Jenny.
Jason, Jenny, thank you for your question. Jason, I feel that you might have more of a robust response because you've been in that life a lot longer than I have. But only if you have an answer for it. I thought you might be the best person to start.
Sure, I would love to answer that question. I think every American should understand that there are people that will pay the price for freedom from a young age until they die, and those are Gold Star family members or a spouse. But the cost of freedom for a veteran, and I'm not a veteran, but I've been around a lot of veterans and interviewed them, and being with Ethan, is there's a cost for the veteran as well that doesn't pass away, and that cost can be a heavy burden. And I think the care and concern that Americans should have for our veteran population should be stepped up a notch so that their mental health can be taken care of, their physical health, their moral health, and there's so many things that we can change to as everyday Americans to support our veterans more. And I think the cost of freedom isn't just those that pay the ultimate sacrifice, but those that pay the sacrifice every single day. And Ethan, I think you would echo that if I were to ask you, especially being at Abbey Gate. 1 minute you're helping refugees leave the scariest time in their life, and the next minute 13 brothers and sisters in arms are gone, and their families have to handle pick up the ashes from there, so to speak. But the guys that come home, the guys that experience things that didn't die, sometimes they have to resurrect in their personal lives, even though they're not physically dead. So we got to take care of those guys too. That's a price of freedom that we don't ever, not ever, but that we probably tend to overlook sometimes.
I want to highlight a little bit of Jason's story. Whenever Jason, I love moments where he shares little nuggets about himself during our interviews, because for me, it's like I'm the audience in those moments in time. But the reason I thought Jason might be a good person to answer that question first is because Jason didn't choose that life. Jason was born into it. I chose to serve. I chose to raise my right hand, take the oath, all that stuff. Jason didn't have a choice. Jason's father made that choice at his young age. And Jason's father decided, I want to fight for my freedom and my countrymen and countrywomen's freedom. And so Jason has a very interesting perspective on the cost of freedom. He lost his father, yes, and we honor that sacrifice. But Jason lived that life throughout his entire childhood up until young adulthood. Going from base to base, different installations. He was a military brat. Something I want to highlight that I think answers Jenny's question in a different kind of way. We get a lot of, and I'm so grateful for this. I'm so happy that we have this. We have a lot of Vietnam veterans who we've had on, and their stories are absolutely mind-boggling. We've also had a few Cold War veterans on. And I want to relate their story to Jenny's question because they paid a price as well. A lot of people forget about the Cold War, and they forget about the service during the Cold War because there wasn't a bullet fired, technically. And it's called the Cold War for a reason. But the reason it stayed a Cold War is because we had servicemen and servicewomen on the front lines defending us and preventing that Cold War from becoming a hot war. And so their cost was, Vietnam veterans didn't get the welcome home. And that's always something that Jason and I make sure to say, welcome home to our guests. Cold War veterans don't really get even recognized because they didn't fight in combat. And so they are paying their own price. They're paying their price of where do I fit in and what's my community? Can I be in the VFW or so on and so forth? And so the price that they're paying is their identity. And how do they identify as veterans?
A lot of them ask them, veteran, no, I just served. I just served this period. because they don't think you're allowed to be called a veteran unless you're in combat. So
Exactly.
but it's out there and it's deep. A lot of people have that same mentality that if you didn't go to combat, then you're not a veteran. You
Exactly.
see it on the bro vets online. They say that all the time. Or you're only in Kuwait. That's not combat. You're getting combat pay. You're there. You're not home. Still in the service. You still did this. Raise that
Absolutely.
went forward. And sometimes it's just a mental block for the younger veterans, but a lot of the veterans, like you said, they battled with that for a long time. My dad served from 58 to 62 in the Army. So he came home in 62, met my mom, they started their life. Vietnam started right after that, in that period. And he was invited to go back to a beautiful Indochina to help train and equip people. And he said, no, I served my country, not knowing what the next 15 years was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of his brothers that he served with went over to Vietnam, and a lot of them did not come back. But he had that in his head forever. But he just kept driving forward, knowing that he served, and all I did was go to Germany. He said.
It sticks with people, and it can really mess veterans up when they don't feel accepted.
Definitely. He has a lot of good stories, a lot of funny stories from his service. And he'd share with me when I was little, but when I put the camera on him and I wanted to record his history. I did 3 shows with him to get all his history out there. And now I know so much more about him, so much more about what he did in service, before service, after service, that I probably never would have really understood if I didn't sit and make him talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a legacy. That's amazing that you did that. I think more people should sit down with their family members, whether they're on a podcast or whether they're just a loving family member, and capture those stories so that you can either record them or tell them again. Because one thing we talk about at the museum is a veteran is never gone as long as we continue to tell their story. And so that's really important. I think it's cathartic for veterans. It's cathartic for veteran adjacent people. And I think that it's healthy for the American public to be able to account those for the history, for history.
Definitely. They say that you die 3 times. First, physically. Second, when your body goes in the ground. And the third time, when we stop saying your name or your story.
Yeah.
So supposed to keep saying their name, saying Corporal Schmidt's name, saying your dad's name, making sure their story lives on. They'll never die because we're keeping them alive.
Absolutely.
Another question. This one might be a little softer, a little more of a softball, I think. This is from Cell E Break. Looking back on your journeys, was there a moment when your pain became purpose, and what changed?
I'll grab that because I have an easy answer. I kind of referenced it already. Abbey Gate and that whole experience in Kabul was painful in a lot of ways. I found purpose in it, and I found worth in it as well, but it was painful. But I feel that, and Jason has a very similar kind of experience in terms of his father. But I do this podcast. I'm a board member at the museum. I advocate for veteran issues because I want to carry on the legacy of those who can't. And I want to carry on the legacy of the fallen 13 specifically. I have a very specific tie to those 13 service members. And so that's my story of turning my pain into purpose.
Well said, Ethan.
You want to add anything to that, Jason, or no? Just
on a much lower scale, it also created a friendship for Ethan and I in a camaraderie that would have never existed without his service or being at Abbey Gate, because he may not have ever come to the museum and sought out that purpose. So that created a friendship, a brotherhood between us, and an experience that we can offer others. So yeah, I second what Ethan said.
Jason and I got really lucky because Jason has such an intense burning passion for capturing and archiving veteran stories. And his previous co-host, fantastic guys, but life got in the way and they couldn't commit as much to the podcast. And thankfully, I just have some flexibility, especially when we first began. I had some flexibility where I could dedicate my time to scheduling veteran interviews, researching and preparing questions, and eventually editing episodes, all those kinds of things. And so it's been an incredible partnership, Jason and me, and a friendship, and now we're capturing stories together, and we're both so passionate about it. We always tell our guests before we start, hey, this is a passion project of ours. And so we hope that you can feel that passion coming through.
That is awesome. It's great that the teamwork you two have and the brotherhood you've grown to have now, even though going from complete strangers to what you're doing now, is amazing. I can see it just listening to how you talk about each other with such a, I guess, honor or homage to each other to speak. It's great to listen to that and know that both of you are in it together and basically brothers now.
Jason's father, another kind of strange tie. I don't remember the exact number, and I wish I could. I think it was near 150 or so. There were not a lot of casualties from Desert Storm, very few. It was a fast war. Rich, as you know, it was a really fast war. But Jason's father is amongst that few.
Yeah.
And so his father has this place in history. It's a sad place, but it's a place in history. And much like Jared Schmitz, one of the last American service members to die in Afghanistan. And he was from just right down the road. And I had a connection to him. So Jason and I have this really strange, like I said, fate. Things happen for a reason. We have this strange connection that I think binds us.
Like that weird Venn diagram that kind of brings us all together in that way.
Exactly.
I was kind of sharing earlier from me to you guys out there, and how we all kind of intertwine somehow in some weird way. We all wind up on the same road.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We had a guest on. Speaking of that, Rich, we had a guest on. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was a pilot. I think it might have been Paul McCool, Jason. But this gentleman, after he retired, he started joining some veteran service organizations. One of which was essentially a group for previous forward combat observers.
Yeah.
And one of his trips took him down to Florida, where Jason had lived at one time and where his father had been stationed. And it's while Jason's father was still living. And this gentleman, Paul, told us that there is a 99% chance that he met Jason's father during that time down visiting. And just absolutely incredible. So like you said, Rich, the interconnectivity, the community, amazingly, civilians might not get this. It's small. The military community is small. Surprisingly so. And so that was such a cool moment that we were interviewing somebody who very well probably shook Jason's father's hand.
And so, Rich, the connection there, and Ethan, I'll just expound on that a little bit, is that Paul was a forward observer in Vietnam. My dad was a combat controller when he first got into the Air Force as an enlisted A1C. And so that's kind of where that match might have been. But my dad always desired to be the best. I'm gonna brag on my dad, because every time I talk to somebody about my dad, or every time I interview somebody, I tell them I want to talk about my dad, because it's the most important reason why I do what I do. My dad was a second generation Mexican immigrant. His dad came over on the belly of a train to Southern California when he was 15 years old after being kicked out because they couldn't feed him, and became a U.S. citizen. My dad was the firstborn. Obviously, he was a Eagle Scout, and he went into the Air Force as an A1C, as a combat controller at Hurlburt Field, Florida, and then got out in 1980, right around Eagle Claw, because he got selected for ROTC at Troy State University, along with one of his combat control buddies. And after getting to Troy State University, he became the Cadet Corps Commander, which was the officer of the class. And after he graduated and became an officer, he went over to California for nav school and became a trained navigator. Then on to Tucson, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base to fly the EC-130 platform as a navigator, and then back to Florida, where he started his career to become part of the 16th Special Operations Squadron, and also one of the contributors to OP4, which is the four Special Force operational organizations working together and collaborating together. So my dad was a special operator his whole life. And he was the first in his family to graduate from college, the first to get a master's degree. He had a degree in international relations from Troy University, master's degree. And so he was killed when he was 33 years old. So my point is that this man, Art Galvan, he accomplished so much in 33 years and gave everything he could to society, to his country, and ultimately his life for his country. So I love to tell that story about my dad. He's my why behind this, and I want everybody in the world to know about my dad.
He also gave us you. So you're that legacy that lives.
And
Thanks,
Jason carries that light forward just the right way, a very, very, very perfect way.
Outstanding. We got another one in from the Twitch world here, from Herb Lena. Through Operation Insight, you've interviewed extraordinary people. What story or guest has impacted you so deeply that you still think about it today?
I hope I don't steal yours, Jason, because I think it's on our top 3 or 4. I have an answer right away. Tom Bomarito, Staff Sergeant Tom Bomarito, United States Army. He's a Vietnam veteran. A story he told us, amongst many stories. We talked to him for just under 2 hours. But he got some leave while he was deployed to Vietnam. I think about a week was kind of standard. And he spent his week of leave in Hawaii, and he met his wife there. They had gotten married almost right before he got deployed, and so they didn't really have a honeymoon. So this was sort of acting as their honeymoon, the 7 days in Hawaii. You know, paradise. People will save up for years to go to Hawaii. And he goes there. He gets off his flight. Immediately a car backfires. He drops to the ground because that's what he was used to. He would wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, thinking that there were people around him that he needed to protect himself from. Again, that's what he was used to for months. He had been in Vietnam for about 6 or so months before this 7-day leave. And what he told us was he couldn't enjoy a single second of being in paradise, Hawaii, with his wife, his new bride, because all he wanted to do and all he could think about was his men back in Vietnam. All he wanted to do was get back in the fight. It gives me chills just recounting it now. At the time when he said that, I was near tears. Another quick story, because Jason and I find it very important to highlight all stories. And so I want to highlight a female veteran story. It's one of my favorite veterans, Helen Keverick, Sarge. Helen Keverick was one of the 2 first female Marines to go through integrated drill instructor school back in 1952.
Wow.
Talk about a trailblazer. Yeah. I think she's 94, 95 now, something like that. And she's got all the spunk that she had back then. And we asked her to do a cadence, and she did a cadence on the podcast. She was so much fun. But wow. That is a real life hero, a real life trailblazer that Jason and I got to sit in the presence of. And I feel so grateful for that.
Absolutely, Ethan. I mean, those are in the top 5 for me. I think to add to that, I'll just add one more real quick. Bud Haddocky, he's now deceased. He was a World War II aviator, and just the number of battles that he survived, air battles. And one of the stories I'll recount is that his crewmates would ask him, "Hey, Bud, why are you keeping a log? Why are you even writing down what's happening?" And he said, "Well, I want to remember what's happening." They said, "You're going to die. You're not even going to make it home. So why even worry about it?" And he had the forethought and fortitude to document that. And he was a praying guy, and he made it home. And the rest of his life was to service to others. And he was one friend of the museum, was telling his story to thousands and thousands of people, which is an American story. And so I was so proud to have known him and to be able to have him recount. He was able to write a song and sing it on a movie that came out. I think it's called The Cold Blue, or is that correct, Ethan? The Cold Blue.
can't remember exactly.
But anyway, he came up with this song, and they asked him to sing it. He sang it out the Air Force Museum, and anyway, he was an incredible guy. He kept a record of everything. He had all of his gear that he was supposed to probably turn in when he left the military, but his dad came to the train station. He had it in paper bags, I believe, and gave it to his dad, and so he had all these artifacts from his time in service that he's able to use as displays for teaching kids about the cost of freedom. So I just really loved Bud Haddocky, and I was appreciative of his story and being able to interview him twice.
And we should probably mention, because we've said Jared's name a few times, our Memorial Day episode was a special episode. It wasn't typically when episodes are released. And we had on Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. And we spent upwards of 2 hours with Mark. He was so generous with his time. And we just asked Mark, tell us about Jared. And it was an incredible experience. And Jason used the word cathartic earlier, and I think that's exactly what it was. But it was not cathartic for Mark. It was cathartic for me. Because Jared was part of my reason why. And so getting to interview his father and talk about Jared as a child and talk about their family dynamic and talk about the day that Mark found out, which was obviously very emotional, that really brought it home for me.
All those guests sound amazing, and I would love to sit down with a World War II veteran like you guys had the opportunity to, and just listen. Just sit there and listen to their why they fought the way they did, why they kept pushing forward, even when they could just lay down and say, "Oh, something hurts, I'm getting out of here." Not one of them did. They fought their way. That's why they call it the greatest generation.
That's right.
It was the Gold Star dads. My Memorial Day show was with Denise Williams talking about her son Andrew, and she was amazing too. Just to stay with her. I've met her before in person. I drank a lot with her one night, and my Gold Star mom got us pretty hammered out there in Gatlinburg. We did the Memorial March the next day with my other soldiers. It was a pretty rough march, but it was a great night. I learned so much about her there, and then of course on the show, stories of their son. His son, for over an hour with her that day on the show. We got two more questions from the audience for you guys. Say Juniper Berries. If you could sit down with a young service member or military family facing uncertainty right now, what advice would you guys give?
It almost feels like a very personal question. So I appreciate Juniper being so open and honest about that. I would say it's whatever you're going through, it's worth it. Whether it's a struggle, whether it's a hardship, it too shall pass. And look forward to the next day and look forward to the lessons you will learn and will have learned from whatever struggle that you endured through and persevered through. I joined the Army at 26. I was the old guy at basic training. And in some ways I felt old. Some of it was true. I wouldn't take that back for anything in the world. I loved my experience in the Army. I loved being a service member. I learned so much from that experience. But it was hard. It was difficult. It was challenging. But I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't be the person I am today were it not for that experience.
Ethan, I'm so glad you said that. I'm going to answer the question through a different lens. I have a colleague of mine who's actually an employee of mine who is a recent military member. She's a veteran now. She's only been out of the military for probably a little bit over 2 years. But what I can say after knowing this person is that I was looking for a veteran that had the transferable skills that I could mentor, that I could advocate for, who I could show this other world to. And it wasn't like a charity case or anything like that, so I don't want that to be the perception, but it was more like I had a purpose driven idea and thought process behind taking a recent veteran and giving them a shot, because a lot of veterans, when they put their resume out there, a lot of employers don't know how to interpret that. So I had a unique ability to translate what I saw and know that I was going to receive a quality individual with a skill set. Maybe it wasn't the skill set from our industry, but it was a skill set with transferable skills. And that person is a close friend of mine. They're a colleague of mine, a subordinate of mine, but someone that I have taken under my wing, so to speak, to show the ropes to in an industry that she had no bearing in. And I cherish the relationship and friendship and colleagueship. And I'm hoping that more people can help veterans do that. And to answer the question, I guess in a circular way, there is that use the military as your platform. If you're a service member, use it as an opportunity to grow a skill set, to grow a network, to grow different areas of your life, that when you get out of the military, you have the opportunity to shine in a different field, in a different way. And people that are hiring out there, look for those military people, look for those veterans, because they have the skill sets, they have the maturity, they have what you're looking for. I promise you that.
And really quick, Rich, because I neglected to answer the question from the perspective of a family member of a service member. Jason and I always make it a point to ask about the military spouse, the veteran spouse, the family member, because they are serving as well. They're serving in a different way, but they're serving. And so if this question comes from like a very personal experience, which I feel like it might, and you're a service member and you're struggling because you don't understand your service member in the family, husband, wife, whatever it is, first of all, understand that you guys are going through something actually kind of similar. So hold fast to each other. That's advice I have for you. But also take care of yourself. PTSD is not just a veteran disease. Anyone can experience something that will bring back post-traumatic stress. And so if you're a spouse of a service member and you're going through struggles, find community and know that you need community just as much as your service member does.
Outstanding. Great answers, both of you on that one. Home run, I want to say that one. Hit the ball into the bud porch out there. So good work. Last one is from, it looks like On the Clock, I guess. Thinking about the draft here. On the Clock 45, or maybe something else. 20 years from now, what do you hope people say about the legacy of Operation Insight and the stories you're preserving today?
Nice. Ethan, you take that one first, then I'll go second.
I hope that people say, I never expected to hear that. I hope that people say, when I started this episode, I never expected I was going to hear stories like that. I never expected I was going to hear vulnerability like that. I never expected I was going to hear a grown man, a Vietnam veteran, cry. And Jason and I always laugh about this. We're not Oprah. We're not Dr. Phil. We're not trying to be any of those people. But we have a space that I feel we curate in a way that allows veterans to feel ultra comfortable. And I think they feel somewhat connected to Jason and me as a veteran, Jason's a Gold Star son, former military brat. They feel this connection because there is some commonality there. Rich, much like you have with your guests, there's a commonality there with a lot of them. And so I hope that our legacy is that, wow, that podcast showed me things that I never expected to hear. And they highlighted people that I would have never expected stories like that to come from.
Awesome, Ethan. And my hope is that 20 years from now, people would say Jason and Ethan cared. They cared enough to preserve the stories. They cared enough to be available and to have a space available for people to heal in the moment, over time, and through their stories. And also that their stories were preserved for their family legacy, for them, because like Ethan mentioned earlier, we've had World War II, we've had Holocaust survivors, we've had Battle of the Bulge, we've had Chosen Reservoir, we've had all kinds, and they may not be with us in the near future. And 20 years from now, it's guaranteed they won't be with us. But their families will be. And I want their stories to be preserved for their families, for Americans. And I hope that said of us that we provided that space for preservation and healing.
Outstanding. Both of you, great answers. I'm sure going through a great chant. Thanks for the answers they're saying in the chat right now. So thank you. Thanks for sharing everything you guys have done tonight. I know since you've watched the show, you know the last two questions that have come up here. Hopefully you've practiced your answers on these. But the first one is, where can my audience reach out to find you and maybe give you guys some follows, some extra views, or maybe even talk to you like we did tonight?
We would love that. Number one, you can go to the MAVM, that stands for Mid-America Veterans Museum, MAVM.org. And you can find the podcast tab, and that's where all of our podcasts are contained in a collection. We also are on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube. Podbean is the platform that we use. You can find us there as well. If you Google Operation Insight Podcast, you'll be able to find us. And we have an email address that Jason and I check on a regular basis. And I'd love to hear from people. We'd love to hear from people. Operation Insight at MAVM.org. I'd be happy to communicate with you via email.
Outstanding. I'm sharing the screen right now of your site.
Thank you.
Also copying your email so I spell it correctly. It's much easier.
Thank you, Rich.
No problem. Pasting that to the chat so people can just get that down there. That's how I got most of the information for the show, is just Googling Operation Insight and found this. Got your pictures. I got your picture in that booth together and let ChatGPT make it some thumbnail.
Very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. I figured if I had one of the two of you together, it's much better than copying and pasting stuff.
Absolutely.
And of course, my last question for you guys, you both can answer either together or have your own three answers. What's three things the Misfit Nation, the audience, can start doing tomorrow to be better people?
Ethan, go ahead and I'll follow you.
Nice.
I think listen. I think Jason would agree with that. Listen. There's advice to be had out there. There are stories to be heard out there. There are people to comfort out there. And sometimes listening is the best medicine for those folks. So listen would be my number one.
Man, that's a hard question to answer. It really is, Rich, but I really appreciate the question. I would say the top three things that I think someone could do tomorrow to make a difference, to be a better human being, be a better American, is to love your neighbor as yourself. That's the first one. The second one would be to be inspiring or be inspired by a veteran. Talk to somebody, talk to a veteran, find out their story. If they're willing to share it, if they're not willing to share it, just be their friend, be there for them. And they don't have to share their story for you to be their friend. So reach out, find a veteran organization to volunteer at. You'll find a lot of value and joy in that, I promise you. And then the third thing I would say is to love your family. Your family is your number one priority, no matter who you are. Your family is the safe, should be. I'm hoping that it is. Should be the safe place for you. So love your family. Let them know that they're important to you, and communicate.
I thought we were popcorning, so let me add my last two.
Add your last two, Ethan. Sorry about that.
I was trying to do the co-host thing there, Jason.
I know. I got loose, man. You let me loose on that.
That's okay. That's okay. So my last two, I'll make it quick, Rich. My last two, care, because caring is half the battle. And sometimes it can be really hard to care. But those who choose to care are going to be the ones that make a difference. And the final one after that is hope. if the moment you give up hope is the moment that you die inside. Listen, care, hope. Unless someone finds a way for us to live on Mars in the next 100 years, this is what we got. We have planet Earth, and we have to make it work somehow. And so listening, caring, hoping together is how we're going to make this a better world.
Outstanding. Great 6 answers there, guys. Thank you. Thank you. You're showing me your co-host abilities there. That was awesome. Great chat tonight, guys. Thanks for sharing everything from the legacy of your dad, Jason, Captain Art Galvan, Ethan, for sharing Corporal Schmidt with us, and your why behind both of you for Operation Insight. And the whole thing with Operation Insight, the whole purpose of Operation Insight is amazing. I know you invited me to be on your show, and I'll do it whenever you need. Whenever you want me to be there, or be on the air with you guys, I'll do it with you. So just send me an invite. I'll be there.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you.
Rich, it's been such an honor, such a pleasure. Thank you, and thank you to your audience as well.
Outstanding. Misfit Nation, I hope you got something out of tonight's show. I know I did. Army brothers and sisters, happy birthday. Cut that cake tonight. Have a great time tonight. Wherever you are in the world, if you're at the tip of the spear, we got you here. We're behind you 100% here. We don't wear the uniform no more, but we're here for you. If any of you out there are feeling that darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Reach into your wallet. You got that 1-inch piece of paper I tell you to carry. 3 names on it. Call those 3 names. They want to hear from you. That doesn't work. Dial 988. Get the help you need. If you don't want to do either of those, contact us. info@themisfitnation.com, jake@themisfitnation.com, or steven@themisfitnation.com. We will get you on the phone. We'll keep you on the phone until someone local come take care of you. So the day tomorrow with you is 100% better than one without you. So next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.